Disability Network Eastern Michigan's logo appears on the screen.
So welcome to our first Accessibility in Your Community webinar. My name is Jeffrey Estlin. I am a assistive technology specialist and videographer here at Disability Network Eastern Michigan. For today's session, we have Rebecca Rosenberg, and she will talk about an app that she made. Disability Network Eastern Michigan is not endorsing any of these products. The purpose of this webinar is to educate people about different assistive technology and accessibility things that are out there in your community. And with that, I will turn it over to Rebecca.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. My name is Rebecca Rosenberg. I'm very excited to take an opportunity here to share a little bit more about ReBokeh and what we do and kind of why we do it. And I think without further ado, I'll jump right into the slides. I will pause a number of times throughout the presentation to take a look at questions. And so we can definitely, keep those coming in the Q&A section or the chat. And we will pause a couple of times and take a look at those if anyone has questions. But without further ado, let's get some slides up and going here. So I am the founder of a company called ReBokeh, and we exist really to power visually inclusive experiences. And we'll talk over the next little while about exactly what that means. So just a little bit of background on me. I am the founder and CEO of ReBokeh Vision Technologies, which is the company that develops the ReBokeh app. And I am also a person with albinism. So albinism is a rare genetic condition that affects the body's ability to produce melanin. And one of the sort of effects of albinism is some amount of low vision. I have a lot of colleagues with albinism who are blind and a number who are more like me in sort of the low vision range. And we'll talk about what that means in just a minute as well. So this is me, a picture of me in about the 3rd or 4th grade doing my homework. And I'm really kind of hunched over this workbook here with my face probably like 2 inches from the workbook so that I can actually see what's going on. It's a normal sized workbook. I'm using a pencil and trying to write and do my homework. And one of the first things you might notice about this is how close my face needs to be to that book. And sitting in front of you in my 20s, I can say that I still have to do this. I still hold my phone really close to my face. I still struggle to read really anything at a distance. And this is not something that's really gotten better as I've been an adult. The second thing that you might notice is that I'm actually not wearing any glasses. And the reason for that is because the type of vision impairment that I have is not correctable with glasses or LASIK or really any other mechanisms we currently have available to us as a society. So let's dive into the vision impairment spectrum a little bit more. You can think of it as very much a spectrum, where on one side you have individuals with effectively perfect 20/20 vision, and on the other side you have those with total blindness. Those of us in the middle are generally referred to as visually impaired or low vision. If you're relatively close to the right side, the kind of perfect 20/20 vision side, generally all you need is a pair of glasses or LASIK surgery to get you back up to perfect or effectively perfect vision. For those on the other side of the spectrum, closer to the blindness side, there are devices like the Iris Vision or the CCTV that can really aid individuals who are blind. And they often come with kind of a hefty price tag. But for those of us in the middle, things are a little bit more complicated. We need more help than glasses and LASIK are able to provide, but the devices for the blind on the left here are really expensive. They're very complicated and difficult to learn. And overall, they're really just not designed for this low vision population of people. So what do I mean by that? Well, about 85 to 90% of blind and low vision people actually retain some amount of functional sight. And this is really important because oftentimes when you retain that functional sight, you're really trying to use it. And this amounts to more than 25 million Americans. And this is kind of a conservative number. We built this sort of bottoms up, taking a look at many of the incidents of many types of different vision impairments that often lead somebody to be low vision. But this doesn't include that pretty much everybody over 45 has normal age-related vision loss that's going on. So this is a really, really large number of people, believe it or not, who fall into this low vision category. And the thing about all of this is that these visually impaired individuals are looking to make their environment more viewable. Oftentimes, when we think about accessibility for people with low vision, we're thinking about audio-only options or tactile-only options. But this population still uses vision as their primary sense. And so they're really looking to make the most of that sight that they have. But that mismatches with those accessibility options that are not enabling them to do that. And so having experienced this kind of throughout my entire life, that led us to develop the ReBokeh app, which I promise I will show you in much more detail in just a few minutes. But it really works sort of like an augmented reality tool right on your smartphone. It lets you adjust things in real time, like contrast and brightness and different colors. So you're getting kind of a live camera view of what's in your environment, and you're able to make those adjustments live to that environment so that you can zoom, you can read things that might otherwise be difficult, or you can identify people or objects or animals from a distance. And so we really built ReBokeh as an iOS app that enables people to make the most of their functional vision by allowing them to use their iOS device to adjust how they are visually experiencing the world. We've been really lucky to be featured across a number of media platforms: BBC News, Forbes, CBS, TechCrunch. The technology actually has users in more than 115 countries. But today, how I got here today is because Jeff and I were very lucky to have met at the Detroit Zoo several months ago. We work with a number of what we call ReBokeh All Access partners, and I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. But basically, organizations that are providing full access to ReBokeh free to the users while you're in their space. So the closest to you all in Michigan would be the Detroit Zoo and Belle Isle Nature Center, where you can go with the free version of ReBokeh downloaded onto your device. And when you enter into those spaces, it will automatically unlock the full version with the full extent of the technology for you for free, so that you can use it as an accessibility tool at the Detroit Zoo. We're working on bringing the technology to a number of other places in Detroit and in the wider kind of Michigan area. If there are spaces that you would like to see this technology after we've had a minute to walk through it, I would love to hear what those are. Moving on from here, so now we're going to actually walk through the ReBokeh app. I'm going to show you how to use it. We'll talk about some of the features that are in the basic free version and some of the features that are only available at our partner sites. If you would like to follow along, you're welcome to download ReBokeh via this QR code here. So what you'll do is scan this QR code. Right now, we are on iOS only. We're in the early stages of developing the Android version, but it will work on either your iPhone or your iPad. So if you don't have an iPhone, but you do have an iPad lying around, I welcome you to follow along with our demo here that we're going to do. And while I just give you a couple of minutes with this QR code, happy to answer any questions that might be popping up. If someone doesn't mind reading me the questions, that would be very helpful, because I can't see the chat with my screen share also going. Either way, I'll pause here for a minute so that you can grab that QR code.
Doesn't look like any questions yet.
Okay, fantastic. That means I'm doing a good job. If anybody could just give me that little thumbs up button when you're ready to move on from the QR code, that would be a big help. I don't want to move forward if people are still trying to use it.
If you don't know where the thumbs up button is, you can click on React, or you can just say you have it in the chat.
All right.
Go ahead, Rebecca.
Good. Okay. Fantastic. So I actually am going to stop sharing my screen here for a moment, and we're going to switch the mechanism of screen sharing actually to my phone so that I can show you this live. Okay. Okay. Bear with me 1 second here. Okay. There we go. Every once in a while, my computer forgets that my phone exists and it decides that it is going to give me a hard time about doing this. So, what you should be seeing now is actually a live view from my phone here. And this is the ReBokeh app that we're looking at. So, we're going to walk through a number of things. We'll start with all of the buttons on the bottom left-hand side here. So this is all of our image adjustments. And I guess actually the first thing I'll tell you about is actually our zoom. So one of the core things that ReBokeh does is actually enable you to zoom, but we do it a little bit differently. So instead of that like pinch to zoom that you're probably used to, what you want to do is take one finger and slide gently up on the screen to zoom in, and then gently down on the screen to zoom out. And that will enable you to actually use ReBokeh with one hand once you get good at it. So we did a beta test really early on as we were developing this technology, and everyone came back to us and was like, this is great, but we want to be able to use it with one hand. And so we adjusted that zoom mechanism so that that was possible. So moving on here to the buttons in the bottom left-hand quadrant here. We'll start at the bottom. So this is our contrast adjustment. So basically, if we slide that up, as you can see, we're able to increase our contrast here. This is useful for a lot of different people, depending on the type of vision impairment you have. This is something specifically useful for me. A lot of people with albinism are really sensitive to contrast, and it just really makes the dark colors darker and the light colors lighter. Next up from there is our actually contrast or our exposure or brightness slider. My apartment is pretty bright as it is, so it's not incredibly obvious how that's making a big difference. But if you were in a dark space and you tried to adjust that exposure slider, you would realize that it's actually making your space look a whole lot brighter, all artificially digitally, instead of using like your flash or anything. So that's really useful for a lot of people who are sensitive to when spaces are dark. Next, I'm actually going to skip the color wheel here for a second and go all the way up here. So these are all of our inversion filter options. So if you're using the basic version of ReBokeh at home right now, you'll probably see an option for the invert option, which just totally inverts all of the colors you're looking at. So a lot of people will use this to adjust things like when they're reading and they want white text on a black background instead of black text on a white background, they can just automatically do that. But also when you go to one of our partner sites like the Detroit Zoo, there's options for all of these other inversion filters like grayscale and inverted grayscale and yellow and blue, and yellow and black. So lots of different things that you can choose from. Now, jumping over here to the bottom right-hand side, the button that is second from the bottom is sort of like a round arrow. That will actually take you back to having nothing applied on the screen automatically. So the reason that that exists is because oftentimes people with low vision will want very different filters applied in even very similar environments or environments that might feel similar. And so we make it very easy to go back to having nothing applied so that you can start from scratch and find what works for you. So jumping back over to our color wheel over here, you want to use this feature, you want to start by sliding the slider that is closest to the right-hand side here. I'm sorry, the left-hand side. I don't know my left from my right. I should, I'm an adult. This will actually allow you to adjust the color of your entire screen. So we can create a little bit of a color overlay here. And then once you've chosen your color, you can come to the second slider here and actually choose how much of that color is applied. So if you only want kind of a gentle blue hue, if that's best for you, you can do that. And this is actually really interesting. So we originally built these color filters to help people with low vision to reduce glare, to increase contrast. Sometimes it just helps make things easier to look at for longer. But we've found since that it's actually really useful for people who are colorblind in differentiating between colors they otherwise would struggle with. It's useful for people who may be neurodivergent in various ways. It's useful for people who actually may even have dyslexia. Sometimes color filters can help mitigate some of the effects of dyslexia, which is really interesting. And so now we'll go back quickly to just having nothing applied on the screen here, and we will talk about the buttons on the bottom right-hand side here. So starting at the very bottom, this little folder icon is actually where you can save presets. So once you find a combination of filters that works for you, you can actually save them here as a preset. If you're using the basic free version of ReBokeh, you can save one preset. If you are using the plus version, or if you're at one of our partner sites, you can save up to 3. And so basically this basic setting is I tend to like to use to read. And so this is a combination of increased contrast and also that inversion filter that I showed to make this more viewable for me, but you can obviously save whatever you want. Next up from there, we talked about this sort of round arrow. Next up from there is actually the pause button. And so if we hit that, it will actually pause the screen. It will pause what we're looking at. So maybe if I want to look at a menu, but I don't want to keep holding my phone up, I can grab that screen grab of the menu. And now I don't have to keep holding my phone up, but I can still zoom in and I can still actually adjust any filters that I want to adjust. If I'm using the plus version of ReBokeh or using it at one of our partner sites, you'll actually see this button that allows you to download this photo now available. So that is at the top of the series of buttons that are on the bottom right-hand side. So we can actually download this in its adjusted format if we're using the plus version of ReBokeh. And then when we're done with that, if we don't want it to save to our camera roll, because this is just a menu we're trying to read right now and we don't care about keeping this for the future, it doesn't automatically save the way that taking a picture with your camera would. And so we can just hit play and we can go back to that live view of ReBokeh. So next up from there, I'm actually going to skip the next 2 buttons and actually show you the button that's on the top here in the buttons on the bottom right-hand side. This is actually our image upload button. So this is also something that would be available to you if you're using ReBokeh at one of our partner sites, where you can, if you click that button, it will actually bring up your camera roll and let you upload a photo from your camera roll that you can then adjust any way that you want to and then re-download it if you're looking for something to be adjusted so that you can see it better. So next, what I'll do here is talk about these 2 buttons in the middle, and they're kind of connected to one another. So I'm going to start with the one that is sort of a magnifying glass and a speech bubble. This is actually our AI image description capability. So this is only available at our partner sites currently, but it's really, really exciting. We've used it quite extensively at the Detroit Zoo, and it works really well in actually allowing descriptions of the animals to happen. So what we can do is point our device at something we want an image description of. We can press that button. Our AI is going to think for a moment. And then we're actually going to get an AI generated image description of what's in front of us. And so you can see here, we've gotten a pretty extensive description. You're looking at a promotional display stand featuring information for an app named ReBokeh. The sign includes a prominent QR code, likely used to direct people to download the app or to find out more information about it. It also advertises the availability on the App Store, and it goes on here for a minute. So while ReBokeh is really meant to help people make the most of their functional site, we know that some days you're just having a bad vision day. You just need a little bit of extra help. And so the AI image descriptions are here to help with that. And if you see, there's this little speaker icon at the bottom here. And if you press that,
you're looking at a promotional display stand featuring information.
It will actually read your entire description out loud or into your headphones, whatever you need. Next up from there, I'm actually going to show you this button that says AI and is kind of in like a little atom here. This is our ReBokeh AI feature. So ReBokeh AI, if you point your device at something you want to ask a question about, and you press our ReBokeh AI button, it starts you off with the question of what am I looking at? But I can ask it something like, what company is this advertisement for? And then we can send that to our AI. And again, it's going to think for a moment. And it gets back to us and it says this advertisement is for a company called ReBokeh. The really cool thing about our AI also is that it is internet connected. And so we can ask it additional questions like, what does ReBokeh do? It appears to be associated with an app available for download on the App Store indicated by the logo. For more detailed information, you might want to scan the QR code or go to ReBokeh.com. So it's taking that information from the image and it's giving you an answer to your question. And so we've seen people use this for all sorts of things, and I'll show you a few more examples of how this has been used in just a few minutes when we go back to the slides. But we're really excited about ReBokeh AI. We've seen a lot of people take really fantastic use of it, especially at our partner sites like the Detroit Zoo, for information about what animals are in front of them, or to get more information from the descriptions that are posted around the zoo, or to access navigational signage and information. So this is a really cool feature. So next up from there, if we go to the top right corner, this is actually our flash. So you'll see that as you slide that, your flash can turn on. There are some places where that would be useful and other places where it may not be as useful. I used to use that actually in my house because I fostered a black cat who liked to hide under my bed. And I used the flash to see if I could in fact find her because she just blended in with the darkness under my bed. Moving over to the buttons in the top left-hand side here, the one on the bottom will actually flip your camera around. So you can look at yourself. You can actually zoom in on yourself. You're getting very close to me, but you can zoom in on yourself. I've used this for makeup in hotel rooms, all sorts of different things that you can use this front-facing camera for. And you can do all sorts of stuff to yourself. You can make you look like an alien, all sorts of things. And then last, but certainly not least, I will show this top left-hand button here that has our logo on it. So this is where your settings menu lives. And so up here is a banner that tells you kind of how you're getting ReBokeh for free. If you're within one of our partner sites, you can access your profile. You can also adjust the UI theme. So right now it's set to automatic. So that means that right now, by default, my buttons are white. But if I switch to dark mode, you'll see now by default, my buttons are black. So you may want to adjust that if you're using ReBokeh to read something and your buttons are white. You may want more contrast between the thing that you're reading and your buttons, so you may change them to black. But generally, I keep it on automatic. You can also adjust the button size. So right now my buttons are set to extra large, so they're really quite big, but we can go all the way down to small. And now they take up a whole lot less of the screen and gives you a lot more screen real estate to do whatever it is that you want to do and to use ReBokeh to see a little better. You can also turn on or off our image stabilization, which there's really no reason you'd ever want to do that. Really, we just put that in there to show off a little bit because our image stabilization is that good. So if you ever want to see what ReBokeh looks like without our really fantastic image stabilization, you can turn that off. And then as you scroll down, there's just some more information about the app. One thing I will point your attention to is this button that says replay tutorial. So if you click that, it will actually take you to a 5-minute version of what we just went through, and it will show you how to use many of the features of ReBokeh. We're actually in the process of updating that so that it also includes more information about our AI, which doesn't exist on there yet. So that is kind of an overview of the ReBokeh app. I think I did see a question pop into the chat. So if someone would not mind reading that out to me, that would be very helpful. And I will see if I can answer that before we take the screen share off here and go back to the slides.
Do you want me to read the question to you, Rebecca?
Yes, please.
So the question is, how long does it take for someone to adapt to using the app in the real world?
That's a really good question. We are finding that it does not take people very long at all. ReBokeh is, as you start to play with it a little bit, it's really user-friendly. The sliders make it really easy to understand what the different buttons do because you can kind of see it happening in real time. We've gotten a lot of really great feedback, not only about how easy to use the UI is, but how easy it is to learn to use ReBokeh. We find that tutorial video that exists in here that I mentioned is really helpful for people. But generally, the learning curve is really fast, is what our user base has reported. Any other questions?
I have a question,
Yeah, please.
Rebecca. What is the difference between the free and paid versions? You mentioned the number of setting preferences, but are there other differences?
Good question. Yes. So ReBokeh kind of exists in 3 tiers. So there's the free tier that includes some of the contrast adjustments, the brightness adjustments, some of the colors. And then there's the plus tier, which you as an individual could subscribe to if you wanted that. That includes access to some of the additional inversion filters. It includes access to the ability to save up to 3 presets, and it includes that ability to upload and download images as is appropriate for you. Then there is sort of our enterprise version, which we call ReBokeh All Access. So that is all of the features that we have available in the technology that is unlocked for you automatically when you're in one of our partner sites. So if you go to the Detroit Zoo, and you open ReBokeh, you'll see that not only are all of those inversion filter options available, all of those preset slots available, the ability to upload and download is available, all of our AI features are available. And you'll also find, if you're using it at one of our partner sites, that you actually don't need to set up a free account. So we actually bypass the need for an account at all when you're within one of our partner sites. And so that really makes it just quicker and easier and faster for people who are trying to use it at the zoo as an accessibility tool to do that quickly. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Follow-up question. How does it know you're at a partner site? Do you have to log into their Wi-Fi? Is it GPS enabling?
Very good question. I will get to that in a little bit more detail, but it is GPS. Yes.
Okay.
So the really cool thing about ReBokeh is that, with the exception of the AI, all of our core features work entirely offline. And the reason we're able to do that is because we do tether the ability for it to know kind of where you are and whether or not you're at one of our partner sites via GPS, which actually doesn't require Wi-Fi, believe it or not. So that is how we do that. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, I promise. Other questions? I think I can probably stop this screen share now.
I have one question for you, Rebecca.
Yes.
Building on to what Gina asked. How much is the paid version when they're not in a area where they can use it for free if they want to upgrade?
Good question. So ReBokeh Plus, which is that upgradable version that you as an individual can have, is about $3 a month, or I believe we have it set up to be about $30 a year. That is pricing that is going to change pretty soon. So I would say if that is something you're interested in, do it now, because that is something that's going to change as we're making a number of really great improvements to ReBokeh. So that's my pro tip today. Other questions? We'll go back to some slides. Okay, let's go back to some slides. Okay, so we just had an opportunity to kind of walk through how ReBokeh works, but I'm going to show you many of the ways that outside of my apartment, people are using this and how they like to utilize ReBokeh in their real life. So what you're seeing here is a sort of screen grab of the ReBokeh app. And you can see we're able to adjust a number of things so that we can actually read the sizing on this jacket and easily access this price tag and this shopping information. So this may be something somebody with low vision totally avoids because they're unable to access this tag information. And I don't know about you all, but I'm still at a point in my life where I need to know how much something is before I go and purchase it. So that's one of the things people are very regularly using ReBokeh to do. This is just an additional couple of examples. This is actually at a zoo aquarium. You can just see how fantastically far we can zoom in with ReBokeh and actually be able to see all of the details and the texture of the feathers on this flamingo. We can really see where the different feathers kind of connect to one another, how they kind of lay on the bird. And this is just something that as somebody with low vision, I have not experienced before and would not be able to experience without something like ReBokeh. And then next, this is actually at a basketball game. Seats are quite far from the court, but we can really zoom in and actually follow along with the game. We can adjust things like contrast that sometimes will help differentiate between the colors the different players are wearing, so you kind of can know who's on what team. And this makes an enormous difference for someone like me being able to actually follow along with a game. I've seen this used and even honestly used it myself through a number of different sporting events. And it just makes such a huge difference in being able to follow along. And you'll see as we move along in the video here just a little bit further that there's a lot of other things we can do with some of these other filters. We may want grayscale to help kind of minimize how much chaos is going on here visually for us so that we can follow along a little better. We may want just a color filter overlay, which we'll put on here in just a second, so that we can make that adjustment as well. And maybe that's just easier on our eyes that day, depending on how much sleep we got the night before. So there's a lot going on here. This is actually a really cool example from the Detroit Zoo of actually using ReBokeh to access navigational information. So as I'm sure many of you know, there are a number of different wayfinding tools that are available. And ReBokeh really is not a wayfinding tool specifically, but for somebody who doesn't need that much assistance, ReBokeh can really help access the navigational information that's already available so that you're not having to ask for something additional or something specific. You can just independently and autonomously use this technology to access this information and figure out where the animals are. As you can see, I was specifically interested in this video in finding the tiger, which I did find. ReBokeh can also be used, and we see a lot of people do this as well, to access like departure board information at the airport, because those are just about never placed somewhere where it's easily accessible to look at them. And so in this case, there's kind of a big crowd. It was hard to get around them. this user wouldn't have been able to get close enough to the departure board to actually see it. But with ReBokeh, we can make all of that zoom happen, and we can also make adjustments so that we can actually read the text on the board. And this makes a big difference in being able to travel independently. This is just a really cool example of that brightness exposure slider we talked about and what a big difference it makes in an actually dark space. So this really is able to bring up how bright this space looks without blasting the flash and like really calling attention to yourself. I even see people use this at restaurants that might be a little bit too dark so that they're able to actually look at the menu without having to blast their flash. Something else I like to mention in this video is that something else ReBokeh can help with is actually minimizing visual clutter and minimizing cognitive load. There's obviously a lot going on in this room because it's a museum exhibit. But what we can do, enabling people to zoom in and get really close to each of these individual pieces, and then understand how they are all together in context, I think really helps with that cognitive load associated with seeing anything at all. And then last but not least, a couple of AI examples here. So this first video, we're actually grabbing a screen grab of this menu board, and we can actually ask how much is a soft drink. And so our AI will take stock of all of the information that's in this photo, and it will figure out the answer to this question. Let's just kind of think for a moment. And then we actually get an answer to this question. And like I said, if you press the little speaker button, you'll actually get this read out loud to you. And we could continue to ask follow-up questions about this, but in this case, that didn't happen. This is actually also a video from our partners at the Detroit Zoo that is looking a little funny right now. But suffice it to say, we are looking at the lion here, and we have asked the AI to describe the lion, and we actually get a really fantastic description of the lion, as well as the enclosure and what's around him and all of the things that he has available to him kind of right around him. So those are just some of the ways we've seen people use the AI as well as all of the image adjustment capabilities throughout their lives and even at some of our partner sites. As promised, this is sort of how ReBokeh is enabled. So we use a process called geofencing, which really is a fancy way of saying that we build a digital geographic boundary around our partner sites. None of it happens with hardware. We're not using beacons. We're not like installing any infrastructure. It's all happening digitally in the cloud. And we're able to basically build that GPS boundary. And then your device, which is obviously GPS enabled, when you enter into that space, automatically recognizes that it is within one of our partner sites and can unlock the full version of ReBokeh for you. So one of the things you will notice when you first download ReBokeh is that it does ask for location permission. This is why. So it's really critical that you do give ReBokeh that location permission, even if it's just while you're using the app. Because that is actually how we enable this without requiring you to connect to the Wi-Fi at the zoo. And I think that overall is a much smoother process for our users and also for our partners, that it just works when you enter into a space. But you do have to enable that location. Does that answer the question about how it works?
Yes, thank you.
Fabulous. You're welcome. So that is pretty much the end of my presentation here. Like I said at the beginning, we are a relatively early stage company. We've been really excited to bring this technology to a number of different organizations, including the Detroit Zoo. We would love to continue to expand the availability of ReBokeh in Michigan. Please give me an excuse to come out there. I think Michigan is wonderful. So if there are spaces that you think would be a good fit for ReBokeh, generally we're working with museums and zoos and aquariums. We've also actually begun to work with some airports, including the Miami International Airport. So if there are spaces that you could see this being beneficial, I encourage you to share them with me. I encourage you to share ReBokeh's information with those spaces, and we would be thrilled to continue to enable these visual experiences for the low vision population in Michigan. So thank you very much for listening to me. My contact information is on here, and I do share that sincerely. Please do feel free to email me if you have questions or comments or anything. Just want to say hello. I also accept those emails. And that is it. Happy to take any final questions.
I actually have a question for you, Rebecca. Yeah. All the videos that you showed were in portrait for people that were not able to download the app at the minute. Are they able to turn their phone and look at it in a landscape position where they may or may not see more?
Yes. You can use ReBokeh in landscape. You can actually not only can you just let the buttons stay where they are and just turn your phone landscape, it also supports landscape mode. You will have to then zoom in kind of in landscape mode and down in landscape mode, but it does work, yes.
Rebecca, I have another question. You mentioned you're in development with Android devices. How long do you anticipate that development process will take?
That's a really good question. I can't give you a timeline on the record quite yet, but it is something that is important to us, and it is something that we're working on. I will say about 85% of blind and low vision people are using iOS devices. They may not have an iPhone, but if they don't, they often do have an iPad that they're using specifically for accessibility purposes. So it hasn't been an enormous problem that Android doesn't exist yet. And really, it's just that as an organization, we had to pick somewhere to start. And because there's such a heavy weight toward iOS usage in the blind and low vision community, that was where we started. But building the Android version is important to us, and it is something that we are beginning now to do, and we're really excited about. And when I have a better timeline, I promise I will share it.
Thank you.
No problem.
So how did you get started with the development of all of this? This is a huge undertaking.
Yes. Good question. I actually started this company out of my dorm room in college, really because I wanted to build something that made my life easier. And it very quickly became clear as I started to talk to people about it that this was a problem for more people than just me. And so originally our goal was to launch ReBokeh as kind of an app that people individually could download and even subscribe to. And we found very quickly that we wanted to remove that cost burden from the end user. And they were using it at a lot of really specific places. And so we saw an opportunity to actually work with the organizations where people were getting the most value out of this to make it available to them. And so it happened in a number of phases, but we were really lucky really early on to do really well getting some media attention for ReBokeh. And that grew our user base to people in 115 countries. I don't want to say overnight, but what felt like overnight.
We have little over 10 minutes left. If anybody has any questions, feel free to type them in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourselves, you can do that too. So hold on for a little bit.
Rebecca, I have another question. Is there a way for users to submit feedback for their experiences on things that are working, not working, things they would love to see you develop in the app?
Yes. We very openly share every which, contact email. We have a contact us page on the website. There's a number of different ways that users can share feedback. We accept it in all of the ways. We check all of the emails. We get emails specifically when people reach out to us via the contact us page. And so we really do value that user feedback. We want to see that. I think it's what has made this technology so good and so stable is the real consideration that our team has taken in the low vision experience. And so it's absolutely something that we encourage. And like I said, you can email me with feedback and you'll hear back.
Great. Thank you. You've done a great job today.
Oh, thank you very much. Any other questions?
I actually have a question for you, Rebecca.
Sure.
And that is, the people who use your app, do you know if they've identified, like where their vision loss is on the spectrum or any of that? Who are your primary users with vision loss, if you know, or where they are? Where's that typical range that you've come across for the people with vision loss that use it, and maybe will fall off out of curiosity?
Yeah, no, so that's a really good question. So one of the things we enable users to do when they sign up for ReBokeh is we enable them to self-disclose their visual situation if they want to. It's absolutely not required, but it enables us to kind of help make ReBokeh better. I can't really share any details on that just out of fairness to our community. But what I can say is that we have anecdotally been incredibly surprised by just the extent of people, like on all points across the vision impairment spectrum, who use ReBokeh and who like it. We have people who actually have no vision impairment at all, who will still use this to like get a little bit more out of their sight. I have one friend who likes to say he uses it to try to read the referee's like lips when he goes to football games. To like really zoom in that far. And this is somebody who's like no vision impairment at all. We've also been really surprised on the other end to see people who have really very significantly limited sight have just a couple of specific tasks that they use ReBokeh for, like being able to operate the microwave independently, where it does actually help them despite the fact that they have very limited residual sight. And then there's everybody in between. When we originally built the technology, our kind of hypothesis was that we would see people probably between like 2040, 2060 and like 2140, 2160 in terms of preferred visual acuity. So whether or not you wear your glasses regularly, like that visual acuity. We thought that was kind of where most of our users would fall. But we've seen across the board people using it for different tasks, but nonetheless using it and getting value out of it.
Any other questions from people? If not, you can go ahead and everyone can leave. Before you leave, I will put my contact information also in the Q&A. The chat box. If you want to reach out to me. Rebecca, do you want to pull up your information on that slide again in case anyone else wants it?
Yes, I can do that. And I will actually just put it in the chat here. That might actually even be easier. So that is my email. And this is our company website. And you are welcome to reach out to us via either of those channels, and we will get you to the right person.
Thank you very much for attending today. Feel free to leave, and hopefully you'll be able to come to our next webinar on accessibility in your community.
Thanks for watching. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. For more information about us, visit our website at www.dnemichigan.org.